Dear students, welcome to the to the second lecture in the course called Linguistics. In this lecture, this lecture is a continuation to the first lecture which we started last week. Now, in this lecture, I am going to talk about, as you can see in front of you on this topic. The topic is properties of human language. Last time we defined language. We said language is a system of which we use it in communication. Now, how do we communicate? We communicate by using what? Language, and this language, either it is written language or spoken language. Right. Now, today we are going to talk about the properties of human language. Last time I said we cannot use the word language with animals. We use language with human beings. Animals do not have the way they communicate, the system of their communication is not up to the level of a language. Only human beings can have what? Language. Because language, as I said last time, is something complicated. It needs a sophisticated brain. Okay, right. I don't want to say more on this because there is something here, as you can see in front of you, that is the properties of what? For human language. Now, before I start talking about these properties, I would say that chapter 2, in which we talk about what properties of human language. Now, these properties are not easy to animals to learn so that they can speak what? Like human beings. These properties are difficult to human beings. Sorry, not to human beings. These are difficult to animals, sorry. I repeat, I correct myself, sorry for this. So these properties are difficult to animals to learn. That's why language is not possible for human beings, for animals. Now, the first property, I'll give it number 1, is REFA, reflexivity. Reflexivity, from reflect. REFLECT, reflect on. Now, what does it mean, reflexivity, which is taken from the verb reflect on? Reflect on, it means to think about something. To think about what? Something. Now, let's go to the glossary, which you have it here at the end of the book, the textbook that we, last time I told you about it. Now here, at the end of the book, the writer gives what? A definition to the terms, to the terminologies that have been used in this book. Now when he defines, Ewell defines reflexivity as a special property. See what? A special property of human language. So now reflexivity is the first what? Property of what? Of a human what? Language. And what else? And allows language to be used to think and talk about language itself. This definition, you find it on page 296 in the glossary. Now, what does it mean? Now, reflexivity, I would consider it as the top property of a human language. Why is it the top? Because the other properties that I am going to write down, I'm going to talk about, are the result, are the consequence of what? Of this what? Property. So unless we have reflexivity, unless we can reflect on language, we cannot have what? The other what? Properties. So the put you in your mind that the first property is this, reflexivity. What does it mean, reflexivity? Reflexivity, it means the ability. Reflexivity is the top property of a human language. What does it mean? It means use language to talk about language. Now let me give you, for example, an example. Take, for example, the sentence, I saw him. In this sentence, I say that this is a sentence, okay? This sentence has a subject, okay? And it has a verb, and it has what? It has an object. So here, you see, I am describing, I am analyzing what? This sentence, which is language, by using what? Language. I am saying what? That I is a subject, so is a verb, him is an object. This process, such a thing, and other things, of course, not only this, other things that I use it to talk about language, I put it under, or I call it what? Reflexivity. Now the question evoked, the question raised here, do animals have this ability? Does their communication system has this property that they can use what? Their communication system to talk about what? Talk about their communication system as we use language to talk about language? That is doubtful. Okay? Right. Now, when for example, a dog is barking, imagine that, can you imagine, for example, let us imagine that a situation in which we have a dog. This dog is wearing a tie, wearing a suit, for example, standing in front of what? Its colleagues, dogs, its dogs. And that dog is talking to them, is explaining, is talking about their communication system. What is that dog going to say to talk about their communication system? Just now, I have explained that I said that this is one sentence pattern, and this sentence patterns, we have 3 words. This is the subject, this is the verb, and this is what? The object. Can animals do the same? As I said, as I repeat myself, that this is what? Doubtful. This is what we mean by what? By reflexivity. What is the result of reflexivity? Is the properties that follow. I start with what? With this is the first one. This is displacement. Okay. Now the second property which I'm going to talk about, and I hope that I was clear in clarifying the first property, and that is what? Reflexivity. We move to the second property of language, and that is what? That is displacement. Okay. Now, what does it mean, displacement? Now, you see, displacement means the ability to talk about things, that are not existed or found in the immediate environment. Right. When you have the ability to talk about things that are not found in this place, now and what? Here. Now this is, we call it what? Displacement. Okay, right. Now, it seems to be that animals' communication lack this displacement. They lack it. If not 100%, but let's say they have an amount of, or some degree, or a degree of what? Displacement. This is, I will give an example about it, but let me now stick to the to the property, or to displacement as a human language property. Now, we as human beings can imagine things. Things, for example, which happened to us in the past, or we can imagine, for example, things that have not happened yet. We what we call expect something. We predict something. Prediction is, I would say that prediction is an aspect of what? Of displacement. Why? Because you can predict what's going to happen in the future. Now, literary men such as novelists, such as poets, such as playwrights, short story writers, all these people make use of displacement. Why? Because they imagine, what they write is the result of their what? Imagination. So imagination is the result of what? Is the result of displacement. They can talk about things that are not found here. They are imagining things that might not happen in the future. I remember that an Indian professor once talked about a novel called Robinson Crusoe. I think you know about it, by Daniel Defoe. He talks about, about Fatal Adral, not Fatal Adral, but we have in Arabic, for example, Hayy bin Yaqdan. When he talks about, for example, about a person who was found on an island, وجد على جزيرة, by himself. That person, he was on a ship, and that ship was destroyed by wind, and he was the only survivor. He lived on that island for 20 years. All these events, what happened to him during these 20 years, they were all imagined by that writer. There was no such a person, but he sat in a room, and then he started thinking, he started imagining things. So this is, we put it under what? Displacement. Now let me clarify it further. Now you took in grammar that tenses are صيغ الفعل are either present tense, past. We have past, then we have present, and then we have what? Future. Okay, we have the present tense, we have past tense, we have present tense, and then we have what? Future tense. Now, the past tense, when you use the past tense, when you use the future tense, when you want to talk about an accident or an incident or anything happened in the past, you remember it, okay? Or when you talk about things that have not happened yet. Now this is, we call it what? We call it displacement. But when you talk about things that are related to the immediate environment, that is not what? That is not displacement. So now we can say that the past tense, the future tense, is the result of what? Is the result of what? Of displacement. Why? Because you talk about things that happened in the past, things that will happen. Maybe they will happen, or they may not, but you're just predicting them. So we can say that the past tense and the future tense are put under this title of what? Displacement. Present tense is not considered as an aspect of what? Of displacement. Why? Because you are talking about what? Things that are related to the present time, to the present what? Place. Right. Now, the point raised here. Now, what about animal communication? Does animal communication, or do animals have displacement? Do they also have displacement as human beings? I mean, can animals what? Remember things happened to them in the past? Can animals talk about or predict, for example, what is going to happen? Here, as George Joule explains this, he says that if they have displacement, or they have it, but at a limited, to some extent, yes, they have, but not as human beings. Okay, right. So, for example, now they say, to my knowledge, as I know that now. In Japan, for example, or in China, when, for example, there is going to be an earthquake, they know that there is going to be an earthquake through chickens. What do chickens do? Chickens, they leave their cages, leave it. They predict that there is going to be an earthquake. This is, we call it an aspect of what? Of displacement. Why? Because they predict that there is going to be an earthquake. And by the way, people in Japan, by the way, when they see chickens leave their cages, they know that there is going to be what? An earthquake. This is, we can call it what? Displacement. But this displacement that they have, it is limited. It has a limit, yes. It is not as widely used or as wide as what? As human beings' language. The example that George Joule mentions under displacement is the one related to the bees. Bees, there are, when, for example, a bee finds, say, a nectar in a place. That bee comes back to the. Now, let me repeat myself. That is what. What about animals? I mean, do they have displacement also, like human beings? The example given by George Joule is that they have, through this example, but their level or degree or level of displacement is a limited one. It is not open as human beings. For example, the example that George Joule cites or mentions in his book is that when a honeybee finds, for example, a nectar source, what does it do? It returns, it comes back to the hive, and it tells their colleagues through dancing that there is what? There is a nectar source. Now they understand from that honeybee, that there is a nectar source through the dance. Of course, the tempo of the dance, whether it goes round or when it moves, it wags its tails, all this is the way they communicate. They communicate by dancing. So what do? They follow it. It goes in front of them as a leader, and then it shows them where the nectar source is. They find it, but and then they come back. Now this is we call it an aspect of displacement. Why? You see, because the time and the place to which the honeybee returns to the hive is far from the nectar source. So it starts by means of dancing. It tells them about what? The place and the place of what, of that nectar source. So it is the honeybee is now in here. It's in the hive. The the nectar source is far away from them. So when it starts dancing, this is communicating about things that is not found here in the hive, but it is far away from them. But how far is it far away? Of course, it is limited. So this is, we can mention it as an aspect of what? Of displacement. But this is limited. Suppose, for example, a nectar, honey bee cannot talk about what a nectar source which she found it, say for example yesterday or 2 days back, or it is far away from it, say for example 1 kilometer. That's not possible. Okay, so I remember also concerning there is a joke, of course, which is about the donkey. They said that someone, an official, visited a zoo. And then when he went to that zoo, he saw that all animals were silent. They were silent, except what? Except the donkey. The donkey was laughing. So he was very surprised. When he asked that person in charge of the zoo, he said, why are all animals silent while the dog is laughing? He said, because the lion gave a joke, and all animals understood that joke at that time, then they laughed and then they finished. But the donkey has just what? Understood what? That joke. That's why it is what? It is laughing. So though this is not real, this is just a joke, but this we can from this we can say that animals have a limited level, they have displacement to some degree. You see, animals sometimes can remember things. I think maybe you saw videos of someone, I saw it, maybe you have seen it, of someone who raised a lion, or lived with a lion for 2 or 3 years, and then he left that lion. And after 10 years, he returned to the same place. The lion came to him, and he was just sniffing. He was sniffing. He was trying to he was very soft with him. What does that mean? This means that the lion remembered him. So this is also, we can say that this is an aspect of what? Of displacement. As we remember, for example, people we saw 10 years ago, we met them 10 years ago, and then when we meet them, then we say, okay, I think I have seen you. Where have I seen you? Okay, this is also what? An aspect of what? Of displacement. So, but it is incomparable. I mean, human beings, displacement of a human language is not like what? Displacement of animal communication. There is a big difference, but they have it. To some extent, they have. So, in order to finish talking about this property, I would say that animals, that displacement is the main property of what? Of a human language, by means of which we can talk about things that happened to us in the past and which have not happened yet. Animals, they have it, but they have it to a limited. It is uncompared when we compare it, or when we talk about what? A human language, what? Displacement. Thank you very much for this point. Okay, dear students, now let's come to the second what? Property of human language. Oh, sorry, the third one. Not the second one, the third one. The third one is, as you can see, arbitrariness. Arbitrary, haphazardly, randomly. What does it mean? Arbitrariness, اعتباطية. كيف ما اتفق عليه. In Arabic we say كيف ما اتفق عليه, or اعتباطية اللغة. What does that mean, اعتباطية اللغة? اعتباطية اللغة, or language arbitrariness, it means that the relationship between the word as a signal and what the meaning of that word, what that word means, the relationship between the two, between the word and its meaning, is an arbitrary type of relation. I mean, there is no natural relationship between the word and its meaning. When there is no natural relationship between the word as a word and its meaning, we call this type of relation, we call it arbitrary relation. Now, for example, why did we call, in Arabic, why do we call this sabura? Why do we call this, for example, a letter? Why do we call this color white? I mean, the relationship between the word color or word لون and the meaning لون as أو أبيض. The relationship between the word أبيض and the meaning of the word, what comes to your mind when I say أبيض. This type of relationship is an arbitrary one. If you look for why is this called so, you will come out with the result, or you will come out with the answer that, what is the answer? Arbitrary relationship. Okay, right. So this, what characterizes a human language is what is arbitrariness. There is no natural relationship between the word and what its meaning. Now here, because we are talking about this, now this is good, this is bad, advantage and disadvantage. Okay, advantage, merits and demerits of this. I mean, since our language is arbitrary, it is good, but it is also bad. But its goodness is more than its what? Worse. Or what? I mean, its advantage is better than its what? Disadvantage. More than its what? Disadvantage. In what sense? Now, suppose, for example, we have the word kelb in Arabic. We have the word kelb. In English, we say what? Dog. Okay. Now, suppose, for example, that I'm talking about what? The disadvantage. The disadvantage is that, now when I mention the word kelb for the first time, kalimat kelb, for the first time, for someone who is a native speaker of Arabic and he has not heard, he does not know about this word before, he cannot what? Reach its meaning. He cannot reach it. The sounds in the word kelb or the sounds in the word dog do not lead you to the what? To the meaning. When the sounds do not lead you to the meaning, then this is an advantage. You have to learn the meaning. You have to learn the meaning. You have to ask for the meaning. When this is mentioned for the first time, you say, what does that mean? So this is the disadvantage of what? Of arbitrariness. Why? Because the sounds of that word that constitute that word do not lead you what? To the meaning. We call this arbitrariness. This is the advantage of what? Of arbitrariness. But what is this is the disadvantage. What about the advantage? The advantage of arbitrariness is that because I am not, or let me say that when, for example, I learn a word, any word, and when somebody asks me this question, why do we call this, say, a letter, or why do we call this blue, or why do we call this a sentence? The answer is ready here. What is the answer? The answer is that language is what? Is arbitrary. Okay, and because you see here now, as I said just now, that the advantage of arbitrariness is more than the disadvantage. In what sense? You see, because now this great number of words that we have it in Arabic or in English or in any other language, it is because what? Because of arbitrariness. When we, for example, call something, we call it, we give it a name. No, we are not going to look for, or we have to find out, or to detect the natural relationship between that name and what that name, or that word, and what that word what means. Nobody asks me. If they ask me, I say the language is arbitrary. Okay. This is because of this we have a great number of arbitrariness. So just now I was talking about the advantage and the disadvantage of displacement and arbitrariness. Sorry for this. Now I repeat myself that. Now, if we come to Arabic, we say kalimat kalb. Kalb as a noun, as a word, or kalb as that animal which has 4 legs. هذه العلاقة here العلاقة اعتباطية. ليس هنالك علاقة بين. Why do we call it kalb? هل لأنه because it has 4 legs? No, this is not. There is no natural relationship. ليس هنالك من علاقة طبيعية. Okay, it seems to be ويبدو انه هذه الاربitriness it suits human language but not animal communication. Why? You see, because with animal communication, because they have a limited number of signals, the relationship between the sound and the meaning of that sound within animals is a natural relationship, is a natural relationship, علاقة طبيعية when بالanimal communication. But with the human beings, بالنسبة إلى الإنسان, his language, natural relationship is not what does not work. Why doesn't it work? It doesn't work because we have so many, or a great number of words. These words, if we want to find natural relationship between the word and its meaning, this means that we reach a deadlock. يعني طريق مسدود. Why? Because we have a great number of words. For each word we need to what? A natural relationship. That's impossible. It's very difficult. So how do we ease this relationship? We make it simple by this arbitrary relationship. Right. So now there is something here. What is it? Do all words in any language, or are all words in any language have this sort of relation? Are all words in any language have this sort of relationship between the word and its meaning? No. There are some words, very limited number of words in any language, in Arabic, in English, in French, we have some words where the relationship between the word and its meaning is what is not arbitrary, but it is what? Echoic or natural. علاقة طبيعية. In Arabic, بالعربي احنا نسميها هذه المحاكاة الصوتية. We call it, نسميها onomatopoeia, or نسميها echoic word, or نسميها natural words, natural. شوف كلمة natural word or word هذه كلمات مأخوذة من الطبيعة. من الطبيعة مأخوذة. يعني when the sound leads you to the meaning, إنه صوت الكلمة, the sound of the word leads you to the meaning, يقودك علما to the المعنى, فهذه نسميها العلاقات طبيعية. But when the relationship is an arbitrary, المعنى الصوت does not lead you to the meaning, that is شنو علاقة شنو اعتباطية. In each language we said there are what? A limited number of what? Natural words, more arbitrary words. يعني the relationship between the word and the meaning is natural. Why? Because or echoic, صدوية, يعني الصدى, يعني الصوت يعكس reflect شنو the meaning. مثلا for example عندنا باللغة العربية by the way هنا there is a not necessarily that إنه إذا هي الword هذه هي what echoic or onomatopoeic words in English they are also onomatopoeic in Arabic, not necessarily. هذه مو بالضرورة. شلون مو بالضرورة؟ يعني مثلا أنا عندي هذا الكلمة الكوكو. Cuckoo is a bird that the notes that it gives, يعني where there is a bird, when you hear that bird, that notes that bird produces or utters is what or are what? Cuckoo. So in English, they call that bird after the sound what which it produces. What is that sound? Cuckoo. So see here, the sound leads me what? To the bird. Okay? Here the relationship is echoic. الصوت, the sound, the sound cuckoo reflects يعكس what? The bird. So in English we call it cuckoo because of the sound it produces. Okay. Another what? عندي مثلا كلمة buzz. كلمة buzz. Or before that we have this game in English, ping pong. We have ping pong. احنا we have actually هذا شوف البينج بونج, هذا البينج بونج it has two words. If I call it table tennis, هذه هنايا, this is here, it is an arbitrary relationship. هاي علاقة شنو؟ اعتباطية. بس من أسمي when I call this game, إذا سميت هذا اللعبة أسميها ping pong, هنايا it is arbitrary, natural relationship. ليش? Because why is it called ping pong? Because when you have a racket, you have a table tennis, table, and the net, and then the ball first pings here on your side or in your side, it pings, and then it pongs what in the side of your opponent. So that's why this is taken from the noise done by the word as it pings in your area, and it pongs in the area of what? Of your opponent, the person who is playing against you. So now in each language we have what we call echoic words, natural words, words which are taken from nature. Also we have buzz. How the sound buzz is produced by what? By bees or by bees or by flies. They buzz. See? So we call it buzz after the sound or the noise produced by what? By that insect. Slurp, the word slurp. Slurp is is an echoic word also, as it is in the book. Why? Because the sound when you suck something, when you drink something, when you drink something and you suck it, the sound produced when you drink, and we call it what? Slur. So when we call a word, see here, very important point. When we call a word, عندما نسمي كلمة بعد الصوت مالتها أو بسبب الصوت يعني محاكاة إلى الصوت، يعني after we call a word after the sound of that word، شو نسمي هذه الكلمة؟ نسميها natural words أو echoic words أو نسميها what? Onomatopoeic words. This type of relationship here in echoic or in onomatopoeic words is different from the relationship in arbitrariness or arbitrary relationship. What's the difference? The difference here, the meaning here in arbitrary word, the meaning does not lead you to the sound does not lead you what? To the meaning. But here it leads you what? To the meaning. So the number of words in any language which are echoic is limited. Okay, it is limited. But can we use echoic words with all words in a language? No, that's not possible. That's why the dominant feature of a human language is what? Is arbitrariness. Because animals, I'm going to stop here and getting the last point. What about animal communication? I mean, the signals that animals produce, are they also arbitrary or onomatopoeic or echoic or natural? No, they are natural words. Natural. Why? Because natural words fit only a limited number of what? Of signals. Because animal communication is limited, so natural words or onomatopoeia fits or suits what? Their communication system, but it does not suit what? Human language. Why? Because of the great number of what? Of words that human language what? Has. With this, I stop. So far we have three main properties of language: reflexivity, displacement, and what? Arbitrariness. Next week, God willing, we are going to talk about the remaining properties of human language, which are represented in productivity, cultural transmission, and duality. Thank you very much for this. I hope that this is clear, and I want you also to read the book. You go to the book. This information I have been talking about, or I have been passing to you, transferring to you, is from the book. Okay, so please go to the book, and at the end of the book you will find the glossary. The glossary will give you a definition of each property of this, which gives you an idea about these properties. Thank you very much, and we meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock in order to discuss these things that I have just finished, or the things that I mentioned last week. So I am in the hope that tomorrow at 9 o'clock for the morning and at 2 o'clock for the evening, you have prepared some questions. We discussed these questions. It is not you have to see this video before you come to the classroom. The last point, I repeat myself, that I want you to read the book. First of all, you want to watch the video, then you read the book, and then you write down any questions. We meet tomorrow for the morning at 9 o'clock, 9:30 in Google Meet. And so is for the evening class at 2 o'clock. If you have any questions, if you feel that there is a point here or there is not clear, you can ask about it. Thank you very much.